Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers. Anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is, we've got a bit lost. Welcome everyone. I'm Chatty, this is my channel Chatty the Mad Chatter, and I'm going to be chatting away madly about some of the things that I've read in March. So in this video I'm going to be covering Hobb. So I'm going to be talking about Dragon Keeper that I read in February. I spoke about it briefly, but it very much is kind of part of Dragon Haven. So I wanted to talk about the two books as a whole. So I'm going to be talking about those first two books in the Rainwild Chronicles. And then I'm going to go on to what I read for Middlegrade March. So as always on this channel, I don't edit my videos. It's one continuous shot. So fingers crossed that we carry on and it all goes in one take and there isn't too much chaos. Clink, 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 clink. A little one-shot gimmick in case you weren't sure what the tiny teacup was all about. I also have a real tea. It's Earl Grey. I'm feeling quite calm today, so I can only drink Earl Grey when I'm calm. It's kind of like a treat tea, but I have to be relaxed to drink it. Otherwise, I just need the actual caffeine. So I hope you grab a beverage, and if you're in the mood for a Hobb chat, buckle in. I'm going to start off by talking about it non-spoilery to give you kind of an idea of the themes in the book and sort of what emotions I got from it. Then I'm going to go full in spoilers because the stuff I need to discuss. I have a lot to say, so I'm excited to talk about that. Okay, so here we have Dragon Keeper, and this is the first book in the Rainwild Chronicles. The Rainwild Chronicles are the fourth series in the realm of the Elderlings, and this takes place with a little bit of action in Bingtown, and then it's mainly taking place in the Rainwilds. And then it is followed up by Dragon Haven. We just deal with the collapsing middle grade we have. Now I've moved the massive Hobb books. Right, you sit there and stay still. Thank you. Then we move into Dragon Haven, which picks up as soon as Dragon Keeper stops, basically. And I have it on the authority of the wonderful Hobb guru that is the Empress Derri from Derri's Read It Before. She knows all there is about Hobb, and she has read it before many times, so it's great always to have her input and stuff. And she says that originally this was one big book. This was the first instalment of the Rainwild Chronicles, but it was too big to be published in one book, so it was then split into two. I personally feel this should have been given the same the same publishing concept that George R.R. Martin and Brandon Sanderson get. So for Way of Kings, that was split into part 1 and part 2 in the UK, and obviously with Game of Thrones we have things like A Storm of Swords, which has part 1 and part 2. So I feel that this should have been given the same treatment, but it is essentially published as two books. But what we get in Dragon Keeper, as I mentioned in my February one, that this has got all the setup. So we have three storylines that we're kind of following in this one, and we follow them separately. So we start to get an idea of Bingtown, we start to get an idea of two different aspects of the Rainwilds. One is the captain of a ship, and another is a girl who's grown up in the Rainwilds community and is given strong Rainwild features. And that's all I'm going to say about that because this is the non-spoiler part. And then all their storylines converge and they go off on this sort of quest, and it involves dragons, and we start to get answers about elderlings. And the main thing about this is there's a brilliant character arc. So the characters definitely go on character journeys in here, and then you get all the payoff in this book. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I don't know where I'd place it in my whole enjoyment of Realm of the Elderlings. It's still very Hobb. You still got that slow burn, the details, the character emotions all going on in there. but yeah, I don't know where I'd place it, to be perfectly honest. I think it's probably not as high as the other ones, but I'd need to get back to you on that. But I really enjoyed a lot of the themes that kind of were explored in this. There's a lot of, how to explain? There's a lot of sort of like looking at the rules for society, and exploring those, and also this exploring individual freedoms, and the idea of kind of like not conforming, the idea of survival, the concept of working as a supportive team or survival of the fittest. So there's all those kind of themes really looked at in these books. And I think that's as far as I can go without doing spoilers. In terms of spoilers for Liveship, I'd say that's definitely as far as I'm going. So if you've not if you've not read Liveship, I'm looking up in that way because I can see my whole shelf, and it's just like, it's almost like it's prompting me. So if you've not read Liveship, I'm not saying any more, because you do encounter some characters just as very kind of minor kind of cameos in here from the Liveship, but I don't want to say who they are, because then obviously you know who survived the Liveship stories and who didn't if I do that. So this is the complete non-spoilers end. I'm now going to do spoilers if you've read Liveships, and then I'm going to do spoilers of all the nitty-gritty here. So use the timestamps wisely, skip ahead to where you need to be. I'm going in. So spoilers in terms of Liveships. At the end of Liveships, we obviously have Tintagila the dragon, as along with Vivacia, has led the, what are they called? The tangle, has led the tangle of serpents to the Rainwild, where they're the hatching ground, where they're all going to be helped to cocoon and come out as dragons. So that's where we left them. We have Malta, who is starting what we feel is some sort of like elderling type of change going on, as well as Rain, I've totally forgotten his name, but her Rainwild husband, and obviously Malta's younger brother, whose name begins with S, and I'm always terrible, I always forget his name. So they've all started to go through those sort of changes, and there's this kind of idea that this makes them sort of exotic. They've got links to Jamila, and it's all seen that way. But you really get shown in these the kind of the harsh realities of the Rainwild, what it's like to live there and be there, and how harsh life is and surviving is there. So there's this wonder, you had the idea that they were in trees, but you get a lot more kind of explanation of why they're in trees, because of the constant flooding and the ground is just not stable. So they live amongst the trees, and like the higher you go up in the tree, like your living accommodation is worse. So it's kind of like poverty and lower classes are right at the top, and then the upper classes and like richer people are in amongst the bottom. And we also get the hint that both Bingtown traders and the Rainwilds have babies that are not always presumed to survive, and those babies are taken away, is kind of the hints that we got from Liveships. We find out a lot more about the fate of those children in the Dragon Keeper. So you get a lot more of all of that. We also get to see the dragons hatching. Now, if you've read Tawnyman, we got a few hints about how that was going, and that the people of Bingtown were panicking because Tintagila wasn't returning to them. So we get to kind of see all of that. So there is a few years passing. So we are here for the hatching in Dragon Keeper, and then we have several years on from the hatching and the decisions that are being made about what best to do with these baby dragons. so all of that has happened. We also have Bingtown, so we know the politics of Bingtown. It's all about trade and the way you run things, and we get to see more of that ideology. Also get introduced to the misogyny of it all as well, which is just as irritating. And I found another character to hate. He's not at Kenneth level, because I don't think anyone can get that amount of hate from me. Lycos in the Faithful and the Fallen I thought was my most hated character, but Kenneth is absolutely my most hated character. Hate Kenneth. And Kyle, obviously. So I'd say kind of around the Kyle mark of hatred. There's another character in here. She always is so good at just making you absolutely hate characters. And what I also enjoyed in these is just the way you're always kind of a little bit suspicious about certain characters and kind of on the fence, because it's almost like you're self-protecting. You're like, something horrendous going to happen to them? What is in store for them? And that's what I love about Hobb's books, that you get that. You have characters that you're rooting for. There's characters that you're sort of rooting for, but you're like, do I keep rooting for you because you're making really dubious decisions, or are you now going to be a character that I really dislike? And you never know what way it's going to go, and I really enjoy that, although it is quite traumatic. And we also have another Wizardwood moment as well in here, and I just think all of as always with Hobb books, there's like little things that are put in at the beginning, and then as the story goes on, you find out more and more and more, and then you hit the place at the end where you're like, okay, all of that makes sense now, and I just love it. I just love it. So we do get a little cameo from Malta, which was fun, and we also get a little cameo from Althea and Brashen and Paragon, which was awesome. I really enjoyed all of that, so it was really good to see them again. And Paragon, oh, it's so good to see Paragon again, and he's very much himself. So that was really fun. But the main we have new characters in here, and I did soon start caring about them, especially when they got onto the river. Once they got onto the Rainwild and all the storylines kind of conjoined, it was a lot of fun there. Okay, now it is full on spoilers. If you have not read these books, get out of here. I'm going to totally spoil them, so get yourself gone. Go and meet me in the next when I start doing Middlegrade March, or if you're just here for the Hobb, it's lovely to see you. Goodbye. I'll be reading City of Dragons soon. Okay. Where do I start? Okay, so Dragon Keeper. Okay, we have our 3 different characters. So we are... Oh, and I totally forgot to talk about the pigeon people. So the whole of these stories, I love the pigeon people. I don't think that's their real titles, I can't remember. I've just started calling them the pigeon people in my head. I just really enjoyed how each new chapter we have letter exchange going on between these 2 people from Bingtown and Rainwild, sending each other pigeons. They started off as kind of just in my head they were little characters in just falconer hoods. They had these little medieval little hoods on. I don't know why, but they both had these hoods on. But by the time I read them more, I got to know their characters a lot better. They'd taken their hoods off and they'd fully formed a visual shape in my head, which was really good fun. But they were hilarious. I really enjoyed their little exchange of letters. It was really cute, and I liked how we got sort of the outside world news from them. So when we are just so entrenched on this journey on the boats, trying to find this new home for the dragons, the people that were left in Bingtown and Rainwild and all of the possible politics going on about what everyone else was thinking of this quest, we got that from those letters. So I thought that was a really cool way of showing that. So obviously we have... I'm already, as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about more stuff I should have mentioned in the non-spoiler section, just as a thing, but it's fine. It'll be what it'll be. I did really enjoy the exploration of abusive relationships in here, like emotionally abusive relationships. Oh, my heart broke for Elise. It was just horrific, like what happened to her. It was just some of the scenes that were written. I think it kind of builds on from the misogynistic aspects of Liveship and how it kind of ended with a really upsetting, horrific scene that just kind of showed the extent of what Hobb was talking about. Like, it showed the full horror of rape and not being believed and being gaslighted. And we get another aspect of that in Dragon Keeper. We get marital rape, and again being gaslighted, that Elise is treated like she's the problem. So Elise makes a marriage of convenience with this person Hest, and originally I thought, oh, it's going to be a wonderful marriage of convenience storyline where they end up really respecting each other and falling in love. Could not have been more wrong. As soon as Hest is speaking to Cedric, who is a friend Elise knows from childhood, but obviously there is a very strong bond between Hest and Cedric. It's clear we get to see Hest's true colours, and he only gets worse as the book progresses, and his treatment of Elise is absolutely appalling, and his getting an heir tactics were atrocious, and how much she suffered was awful. And I love that she was squeezing her side of the marriage bargain out of this. She's like, you promised me scholarly pursuits and I am absolutely going there with this. And I love that she did not let him back down from the promise that she could go to the Rainwilds. I love that she stuck to that. And it must have been really hard, because you do get the sense that she's constantly beaten down. And she knew he was cheating on her, but she was unable to prove it through his gaslighting. And it was just appalling. So I'm so pleased when, like, the moment she got to go on her trip and the moment that she just got to be free and be herself and started blossoming was so joyous. It was so beautiful and wonderful, and I adored it. We also get to see, which I thought was really important to show as well, an abusive LGBT relationship as well. So Hest and Cedric are actually lovers, but it is not a healthy relationship. It is a really toxic relationship. Hest is abusing both the people in his life. He's abusing his wife, and he's abusing his boyfriend. And Cedric, unfortunately, is this younger, only just starting to recognise that he is gay, and is absolutely taken advantage of by Hest. He is also from a poorer house, and Hest has all this lavish wealth. So the power in that relationship it's so stacked against Cedric. It is so apparent from the get-go, and more of this is revealed the more we learn about Cedric. Like, it's quite hinted at, but it becomes so much more blatantly obvious as the book goes along, and I enjoy again how Hobb reveals this to us as we go along. And I was highly concerned by the time I got to the end of Dragon Keeper, and we understand Cedric's terrible choices. We don't agree with Cedric's terrible choices, but it makes sense for his character. And I was really upset and quite worried that the only full gay character, any kind of like gay characters we've seen had then got this rather abusive storyline and were just not likable. But I was so delighted with Dragon Haven, and we immediately start seeing the switch in Cedric, and we start seeing his turnaround and his change as he starts to understand that dragons are not like cattle. They are highly intelligent creatures, and do not deserve to be treated like something that he can use to sell and buy his way into a better lifestyle. And within that, we also start to see him exploring his like how he was treated by Hest in this relationship, and there were so many moments when I was so delighted for him to start having the scales falling from his eyes, pun totally intended with that, and seeing Hest for who he truly was, and that he was treated appallingly by him, and that it was not an equal relationship by any means. And then we get to see the contrast in this by how he's treated by other people, and he definitely goes in this journey of needing to be forgiven. One, for his treatment of dragons, and two, for his treatment of Elise. As a friend, he did not support her. He kind of encouraged her to be used in this way. And there are rightly some hard conversations that happen in here, and I was so pleased with how it was all addressed and where it all went, and that both Elise and Cedric recognised their own self-worth and saw that the culprit was Hest and his appalling treatment of both of them. And it all culminated in something that I've highlighted in here that I'm going to read to you because it was one of my favourite past years and I got really excited when I got to it. So I'm going to read to you the bit that I loved. So this is where both Hest and Elise have confronted each other about Cedric and Elise have confronted each other about, Elise has confronted Cedric about the locket and his relationship with Hest. No, she hasn't confronted him, he revealed to her, and then now she is talking with him about it. Well, that was a waffle, wasn't it? Embrace the waffle. So this is the locket, right? They're referring to the locket that Cedric had with Hest's picture in. You kept it. He was stunned. I did. I didn't know why. Perhaps to remind me of how stupid I'd been. She glanced at him from under lowered lashes. But perhaps you need the reminder even more than I do. After a moment's hesitation, he took it from her. For a moment, he held the trinket in his hand. Then he looped the chain over his neck and slid the locket inside his shirt. Always, he agreed. She rose so he wouldn't see her eyes filling up. Could it be that simple to be done with the old and finally begin clean with the new? She lifted the lid of the kettle and gave the soup to stir. It was barely simmering. We need fuel, she seemed to be saying anything. Here's something we can burn, Cedric said, and flipped the tiny portrait into the fire. She hadn't seen him pick it up and look at it. It landed in the fire, and a single flame flared up briefly before the image curled and blackened. And here's something else. The lock of Hest's black hair landed on the dying coals and singed. Smoke rose from it, and she hastily slammed the door of the stove. Oh, that stinks, she exclaimed. Cedric sniffed. He does, doesn't he? She covered her mouth and nose and then laughed around her hand. To her surprise, Cedric joined her, and suddenly they were both laughing together as they had not in Star knew how long. Then somehow he was crying instead, and her arms were around him, and she found she was crying too. It's going to be all right, she managed to say to him. It's going to be all right. I've got you, my friend. We'll be fine. I love this! And I've marked it. I don't tend to tab my books or anything. But I started writing a few little bits and pieces, and I've written, this I have been waiting for since Dragon Keeper. I needed this hug. Support, honesty and friendship. Happy tears. So I was crying when I read this bit. The build up to that moment, everything they'd gone through, like the friendship that needed saving, the betrayal of the friendship, and then finally it was all out and they were able to make up for it and they were able to start healing. And I wanted them to be this close. I wanted this friendship so badly to be there again, and they had. And that hug was everything. I needed that hug. It was beautiful. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed Elise living her best dragon scholar life and how she goes from being this middle class business trader's daughter to getting down and dirty in the swamp, practical and just enjoying the life on there. And I'm going to move on to the dragons and all of that. I love how we get like the echoes of Tintagila. So Tintagila's dragon, where she has herself on a much higher level than the puny humans underneath her. And it makes sense. I do think that dragons are just like really, really, really dangerous cats that everyone is there to serve them and to help them and be useful to them, and they just don't have the capacity to consider, you know, mortals who are barely going to be around long enough to do anything remarkable. So I kind of enjoy this because it makes them feel more real. I mean, we all have the fantasy of, oh, I want a, you know, dragon friend, and we're going to be friends and we'll fly in the sky, and isn't it so cool to have a dragon breathing fire, and it can be fierce. But it's like, if it's going to do all of that, don't know if it can just be this like wonderful warm companion as well. So I felt there needed to be some kind of otherness to the dragon, which I think Hobb provides so well, and I really like enjoy that. And I enjoyed how we got different characters of all the dragons. And I was also like trying to work out, do we recognize serpents from the Tangle within this? Because we had quite a few sort of like serpent characters that were mentioned and discussed. And it never sort of blatantly says it. But myself and Stacy, who was part of the buddy read in Gregory Lepetti's Discord with this, we definitely were like, Malkin is the golden dragon. Sorry, slight child-related interruption there. So yes, both Stacy and I believe that Merkur, sort of like the golden dragon, is Malkin of who sort of like led the Tangle of Serpents. The character feels very much the same as well, and it is alluded to like when some of the dragons are discussing things. And I just love all the completely different personalities of the dragons, and the more we get to know them. And I love, as the story progresses, how them moving like from having sort of like this care and attention and adoration and getting stronger and doing things more for themselves, they start to become more dragon and less sort of malnourished, and with sort of like their two smaller wings, or like their legs being different sizes, and all the kind of irregularities that happened when they came out of the hatching. I really loved how all of that happened, and it was just so delightful. You're with them in this suffering, in this like dirt for such a long time, and then when they find like the dragon warming spaces, it's just so happy. Like all of the stuff they have to go through, and the keepers and everyone else on the boat, it's just like the moments of like joy in here just feels so much more so because you have been through the rubbish with them. And that's what I love about Hobb's writing, that you have all of this detail in it, and it's just so immersive. So I really love the relationship between Merkur and his keeper Sylve. Oh my goodness, she absolutely has my heart. She is such a delightful character, and just thank goodness for Sylve. There's so many sort of harrowing moments of this book that she just makes better by being there and being her wonderful, calm, what's the right word? Sort of like when you're positive, but you're just like thinking the best of everyone, but still holding firm to your ideals of what is right and wrong as well. She's not just a people pleaser or just like willfully thinking the best of people. It's like trying to like empathizing with people and trying to understand them. I love Sylve. I think she's wonderful. So I really like the pairing between her and Merkur, because she obviously, he is, dragons don't have leaders, but Merkur is like the leader of the dragons. He seems to have most of the stories and sort of like the most wisdom, I think, and is perfectly kind of foiled by Sylve, because she just has this calm demeanor, and she just wasn't thought much of by the other ones because she is so much younger. So I really enjoyed that they have that pairing. Centaura and Thomara. So Thomara is our main perspective from the Dragon Keepers. We get to meet her as a child watching the hatchings, and we get to meet her dad and see the relationship, and we start to realize that she's not just got a lot of heavy sort of scaling and dragon features. She is actually one of the children that would have been just essentially left to die, and that's what happens to the babies. They're left to die. So that was quite horrific, finding that out. When it's kind of looked at in the Rainwild culture, it does make sense logically, but just like emotionally, it's like baby murder, and it just feels horrific. So I love that her dad, he said, no, we're not doing this. Let's give her a chance at life. And it's so heartbreaking, just no matter what she does, because she knows she's not supposed to exist, she's almost like got to be even better. So this prejudice on her for being one of those children that is a lot more dragon than child. In the elderlings, it's seen as like beauteous, but in the like born with it as the Rainwild children, it's seen as deformity. And it's seen as like you shouldn't really be alive, you're going to be too ill to be able to function and add to society. And it just feels horrendous, like being seen like that. And I just think that prejudice could kind of translate into prejudice against anyone, that because society view you as different to them, it's almost like you've got to be so much better to prove that you are worthy to be amongst everyone else. And in that position, it's almost like you can't even just level peg with them, you've got to be even better to be given their like respect and chance. And I just think that's horrendous, but it definitely gives that reflection, and you just really feel for Thymira in this. And I just love her relationship with her father, and I have marked a bit from Dragon's Keeper that I want to read about her father saying goodbye to her. So she decides to go on this, become a Dragon Keeper, and it is very clear that it has been a way for the Rainwilds to remove those in society that don't reflect well on them, that they think were due to have died anyway. So they are removing the problem of dragons and the children that shouldn't have survived all in one go by sending them off to go and find a better place for the dragons. And you can see how this has affected a way that a lot of the keepers think and feel about themselves, and to some they're more cynical about it, and to others it feels almost like a fresh start. And I'm going to read the passage now. So her dad doesn't want her to go. He's like, you don't need to do this, you don't need to prove yourself, just stay with us. I'm trying to work out, I've marked a passage, but I feel like I want to read a bit more than the bit I've marked out. I just realised it's been quiet for a bit of time. I'll read more than I marked out. Thymira, you don't have to do this. Stay home. I know that your mother makes things difficult for you, but She cut him off before he could say anything more. Papa, I do have to do this. I signed a contract. What do we always say? A trader is only as good as his word? And I've done more than just give my word. I've signed my name. She thought of her dreams of a dragon bonding with her. She took a deeper breath and added pragmatically, and we both know that I need to do this just so I can say I stepped up and did something with my life. I love being your daughter, but that can't be all I ever am. I need to... She groped for the words. I need to measure myself against the world, prove that I can stand up to it and be something. This is the bit I marked. You're already something, he insisted. But the strength had gone out of his argument. When she put her hand over his, he released his grip on her wrist. She stopped where she was. Tats ahead of them looked back curiously. She shook her head at him slightly and he moved on. We should say goodbye here, she said suddenly. I can't. Her father seemed horrified at the idea. Papa, I have to go, and this is a good time for us to part. I know you'll worry about me. I know I'll miss you, but let's part now at the beginning of my adventure. Tell me good luck and let me go. But, he said, and then suddenly he hugged her tight. He whispered hoarsely into her ear. Go on then, Thymira. Go on and measure yourself. It won't prove anything to me because I already know your measure and I never doubted you. But go and find out what you have to find out and then come back to me. Please, don't let this be the last time I see you. It's just so sweet. I really love it. I love that to her dad, it's like, you need to prove nothing. You're everything I want you to be. I love you. I love all of you for who you are, and you don't need to do anything different. It's just such beautiful parental love. I think we all need that, but equally it's almost not enough for her. Like, she needs to find a place in society, like not just being someone's daughter. She also needs to like find who she is and what she's capable of. So she goes amongst all the other keepers. Just going to briefly mention a few of the other ones as well. So we have Rapscal and Hebe, and I love Rapscal as a character. He's just so wonderfully honest and blunt, to the point of not reading the room, but I just appreciate him. I just appreciate his positivity, and the way he sees the world is just very clear and open, and there's no conniving, and I just think he's wonderful. And it did hurt when Rapscal and Hebe were believed drowned, but there's always the not yet found a body thing. And I was so delighted when they came back at the end. And not only that, Hebe was flying and her and Rapscal had found the place they were heading to. It was so beautiful. It was so Rapscal. And I just love how he's just so different to everyone else. And I love how he is with sort of like Thymera. Thymera always feels uncomfortable and annoyed. Not always, but like generally. And she has reason to be. But I like that Rapscal just comes from such a place of open and honesty. It's like he says something unexpected that you didn't really expect from him, and he's just so wonderfully simple with it. And it's like, but I do this because I like you, done. And there's nothing complicated, and I just think it's lovely. But it felt very un-Hobb. It's like, hold on a minute. I thought Repelda the dragon was going to die. We thought possibly Rapscal and Hebe were dead, and none of that happened. Who are you, Hobb? I thought Cedric was going to go down a horrible, tragic story, and it didn't. Are you sure this is you writing this, Hobb? Are you sure? I've joked again with Stacy on in the Discord chat that maybe I feel slightly unnerved, because like this is the first book and it's sort of happy. It's sort of like things have ended comfortably, like people we don't like have departed, and characters we do like and stories we wanted for those characters have happened. There's still 2 more books to go, and Stacy said, well, maybe everything's just going to go downhill from here, and all the trauma and everything is going to come in the next book, so I'm now terrified. But I'm now going to address the Dragon Keeper sex politics. I think that's probably how I'll refer to it. So there's a lot of icky feeling around all of this. A load of horny teenagers getting to be alone without adult supervision properly for the first time, and without the supervision of their community. A community which has said that they cannot mate because of who they are, that they don't think it's a good idea for them to mate. And I saw this as a kind of like a breeding thing, that they didn't want more people to come out covered in scales and with dragon features. But the more you read the book, the more you realise, well, actually, there's not just the physical appearance, there's kind of internal difficulties as well with some of them. And there's the ability to birth and what they may be birthing, and that childbirth is a horrendous ordeal within that time anyway. It's kind of the medieval kind of timeline, so there's not going to be a huge amount of medicine. Probably there's a high death rate within giving birth to a child. So you've got that, then you've got the added complications of, you know, being someone of the Rainwild who has got sort of dragonish features, and they don't know how well that will react to having a baby. So they probably have a bigger death through childbirth chance, which is something that I hadn't considered, but it's something that Thymera definitely considered. And that is one of the reasons that her father tells her not to mate, because he wouldn't want her to die. And she takes that to heart. And what originally I thought of was her feelings of self-worth and her feelings of being unable to shake off the rules of the old life rather than thinking for herself. It's actually, she is thinking for herself, and it's everyone else that is naive, thinking, oh, the rules were just because they wanted to control us because they didn't like us, whereas actually there was a certain amount of safety within them that we don't know. And maybe it's not the best time to be experimenting when in this highly dangerous place, where it's not safe for anyone. And I love all of Thymera's arguments about why she doesn't want to have sex and she shouldn't. And I love how she's just like, you are not going to pressure me into this. This is absolutely my right. We are not animals. Stop making these decisions for me. It was so gross hearing Greft's plan. Like, he wanted to be this new society leader and have this kind of idea and trying to spin it that, you know, people are going to fight over, you know, the females, so we need to pair you up, so we stop that. And I love how she just absolutely put him down in his place. But what upset me was Tats's reaction to all of this. And there is sort of something between them, but Tats has decided it's all or nothing for him. And sadly, I imagine there are a lot of teenagers that may also, not teenagers actually, that's doing teenagers a disservice. There are a lot of people who also believe in this kind of all or nothing situation, whereas actually, why is that the end of? Why is, like, you need to absolutely respect someone and go along on their same journey, and if sex is all you're interested in, then bye-bye, get lost, go find someone else. And I have marked a passage in here that made me really, really angry. I'm going to read the bit that made me really, really angry. Just going to check what I'm reading so we don't have that weird pause again. Okay, again, I'm going to read quite a bit because I just think it gives it much better context. So just prepare for a bit of reading. So this is Thymera and Tats kind of having quite a big argument about their relationship status, and I am Team Thymera all the way. I'm not afraid of you, Tats, nor of joining myself to you. I'm afraid of getting pregnant. Look at Jerd and how miserable she is, vomiting every morning. She's always weepy now, or angry, or both, and she barely does any of her duties. I don't want to turn into that. You don't want children? His words seemed almost accusing. She bridled incredulously. What? Now? Of course not. Do you? He moved one shoulder. Wouldn't be so bad. Not for you, perhaps. But even if my pregnancy were easy, I can't imagine having a baby now while we're still trying to find Kelsinger. Have you even thought about what you just said? Nursing a child or finding something to use as its napkins or blankets? Tats half turned from her. It would be different with us, and I care about you. If I got you pregnant, I wouldn't abandon you. She spoke with sudden certainty. You're only saying that because you know how unlikely it is for me to get pregnant, so you're willing to take a chance. Well, everyone was shocked when Jerd caught a child. All I heard from everyone is how surprising it is. Well, if you talked to the girls about it, you'd hear how alarming it is. Thymera shook her head and made a sudden decision. Tats, I'm not going to mate with you. Not while we are still journeying like this. She wanted to tell him she still wanted to be able to kiss him, to touch and be touched by him, but that seemed so unfair until he spoke. Then I don't see how we can go on at all. There was hurt in his voice, but also a shadow of a threat that angered her. Oh, I see. She bit the words off sharply. If I let you mate with me and you get me pregnant, you care so much for me that you'll stay at my side through thick and thin. But apparently you don't care enough for me to stay with me if I'm not willing to mate with you. Does that make sense to you? For a moment he was silent and uncomfortable. Then, yes, he blustered, it does, because it would show you cared for me as much as I care for you. Right now, what we do is like teasing me. I feel like a fool when you suddenly stop and say no, as if I'm a child begging for another sweet. When people love one another, one doesn't say no to the other. His absolute certainty took her breath away. Married people say no to each other all the time, she insisted. I'm tired of you making a fool of me, Thymera. Tats turned away from her. I'm not trying to make a fool of you, she hissed after him. I just don't want to get pregnant. Can't you understand that? I understand that you don't care enough about me to want to take a chance. We know it's unlikely I'd get you with child, but you don't care enough about me to risk even that small chance. I am so angry with Tats right now. I wrote, so angry, many exclamation marks. It's in here. Thymera is a queen and Tats need to be shoved overboard by my fist. I was absolutely fuming when I read this passage. I'm still fuming about it. I want to physically manhandle him because I just want to bash his head against the wall until like maybe some of this is just like shaken into his skull. He's a prick. Like, why is he saying this stuff? It's almost like kisses and cuddles aren't enough. Like, what's wrong with having a wonderful cuddle and a kiss? And if you're just wanting to just have sex, then go and find someone else to do it. Like, don't even pretend you care for Thymera, and don't even pretend that this is about risking for love and that people in love would just give up their their beliefs and their morals and their ethics just because you want them to. He's so bloody selfish and it makes me furious. And this is really brought home when Jerd eventually does give birth to the baby. And where are the keeper boys in all of this? Well, they are all on deck and hide as soon as they see any of the girls because they don't want to face this. They're terrified of what's going on. And all the girls are in there with Jerd with the birth. And it's utterly horrific. The scene with Belen from the boat where after the birth has taken place felt very, very harsh. It felt a bit like slut shaming. But when you see it in the context of the scene and the harsh reality that they all live in, it is, again, this is a misogynistic world. This is a place where it is the women that get lumped with the children. Although it is takes two to make a baby, there's only one person left holding the baby at the end of it. And this is hammered home, that it's like, as much as people will, it's a joint thing, at the end of the day, you are the one that's going to be with this child, and it's going to be everyone else who's going to be helping to raise it. So it is a lot of talk about the consequences and about why the rules are in place and about people's opinions on this kind of social politicking. And I just love Thymera's attitude that, no. Absolutely. Keep saying no. It's entirely your body. Up to you what you do with it. And other people should respect your decisions. And she's not going to be shamed into it. There's nothing to do with anyone else. She shouldn't have to conform to their new society. And again, in that wonderful time, thank you, Sylv, for once again just being wonderful and just saying that she wanted to look at the stillbirth. So there was a really... It is a really hard chapter. I spoke about it in the Discord, so I think I got to it first, that just be careful because it could be very triggering for people. So when I do my story graph review of this book, because I haven't done it yet, that will be obviously one of the triggers that I will mention in there, because it does feel, I cried in that chapter as well. And so Sylv looks at the baby and just, it's kind of like a respect thing and just sort of like a loving and nurturing thing. And just sort of like they say goodbye to the baby, sort of like a little burial thing at sea. And just Sylv's attitude is just beautiful. I just love Sylv so much. Like, she's just the balm for my soul amid all of the angry grrr moments. And then we also get the wonderful boat. The name I've totally forgotten, but I love the boat. So we have a Wizardwood boat again, but it's different. So this is like a barge, so there's no figurehead. It has painted eyes on the boat, and we know that Wizardwood has been incorporated into it. So there's been so that was kind of the captain's secret, that he used Wizardwood for the boat. It's like he asked the boat and the boat requested this, and it turns out the boat has legs and a tail, so it can be mobile, so it's like a creature, it's like a dragon. I love it. And also because we then find out that obviously the cocoon that made the new wood, so it's kind of merged with the current boat, so you've kind of got a changing character of the boat to begin with. I loved all of that. And I hope we see more. I can't wait to meet all these characters again and continue on this journey. But I was delighted that we got to Kelsingra. And I want to see more of the relationship between Thymira and Sintara grow, because Sintara is still very much self-obsessed. There isn't a lot of compassion between her and Thymira. She is very rejectful of Thymira. A lot of stuff is like explained to her by the other dragons and looked at through them. But I'm really interested in her and interested in the relationship between her and Thymira, and I'm really hoping that they start to kind of get on and have a more of I want Sintara to respect Thymira more. I want her to manage that. I don't know if she's going to be capable of compassion, but I want her to have more of a respect, and she definitely is from watching Thymira not be bossed. And she's like, great, now you're acting like a queen. She is a queen. So I'm looking forward to seeing that relationship develop. I'm kind of scared about what's going to happen to Elise when cause I feel that she's going back for supplies. So I'm worried what's going to happen when she kind of gets there. I'm interested to know what everyone else is going to think now Kelsingra has been discovered. Are more people going to come? Is Malta going to come? What's going to happen there? I feel there's going to be some sort of backlash from somewhere. I'm not sure where that's going to come from exactly. But I'm really enjoying that we're starting to see elderlings, and that we've got elderlings being made, and that's amazing. Oh, and I haven't finished talking about Relpta. So what was originally known as the Copper Dragon all throughout Dragon Keeper, and I was just basically expecting her to die any moment. And she just absolutely comes into her own and has this wonderful connection with Cedric, and she's just totally forgiven him, and she knew exactly what he was trying to do, but she's like, no, I've chosen you, and we're going to make this work. And she's a little bit like Rapskull in that, like just the open honesty. And I really was really pleased to start seeing their bond happening. And just how she sort of is understanding him, and like he's going through a lot. There's a lot of unresolved business from his abusive relationship that's affected his mental health, and then now he's consumed by guilt from everything that he's done. So I love that between Rapelda and Carson, Cedric is supported to get through his mental health battles. So again, another trigger warning, there is suicide attempt in here, as well as emotionally abusive relationships, misogyny, and stillbirth. There's a lot of trigger warnings in this book. But the way it's done, Robin Hobb always does it. It's done with, I always feel it's done with care. Like there's always a purpose to it, and there's something that we're getting from the story, and there's emotions we're supposed to be feeling, and we're supposed to be feeling this anger and this sadness and then this joy, and it's just so beautifully done. I'm really excited to see where we go with the next book. I know there's characters I haven't completely spoken about and covered, but those are the ones that were burning at the top of my mind, and I've really been speaking about this for an hour, so we are going to move on now. But yes, I really enjoyed Dragon Keeper and Dragon Haven, and they should be one book. It should be one, it's a book, because it doesn't quite work split in half. It's very much a whole story. Yes, I'm gonna move on now. So, Middlegrade March. What did I read? Well, I'll go through sort of how, if I met the criteria, and talk you through that. So there is one book I haven't finished reading yet. I'll go through the ones I've read and one that I've started. So I've read 6. That's a nice number. I had so many that I was so excited to get to and wanted to read. I didn't end up doing my TBR until like halfway through the month. And I have kind of, I've got many goals in my head about what I'm trying to read and what I'm wanting to do. Library books are a bit of a factor. I've sort of prioritised those because I know they need to go back to the library. I need to stop getting library books out. I was hoping to progress some more with series, but yeah, not been doing so hot so much on that, or reading what I own. and I nearly hit all the prompts. So I'm just going to pick them up and show you what I've got. Come on, bookies. Okay, so we have Nura and the Immortal Palace by M.T. Khan. This is a placeholder for Everdark, which is part of the Unmapped Chronicles by Abby Elphinstone. I read this as an audiobook. We have Cattywampus by Ash Van Otterloo. We have this tiny little book here, My Story, Ignatious Sancho by Judy Helburn. A Rover story by, let me get the right author, it's not on the spine. Jasmine Varga. And then we have Hollowpox, which is the third book in the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. So mainly fantasy, with a historical fiction and a sci-fi in there as well. I have also begun See You in the Cosmos, but I haven't finished it yet, by Jack Cheng. So going through the prompts, this is my prize-winning book that's not the Newbery, and I can't remember what it won, but I will put that in the description. Would have been helpful, wouldn't it? But it was a prize-winning book. This is a contemporary about a boy that wants to send his iPod to the moon. And it just sounded really, really good about what I'd heard from it, and I can't remember any more of the synopsis from that. I've only just really started into it, so can't really tell you a huge amount about it. So this is going to end up in my April wrap up. Okay, then we had the Read a Sci-Fi prompt. I read the group read for this one because I couldn't fit my other sci-fi in. There just wasn't enough time. So this is a Rover story by Jasmine Varga. And I managed to see the beginning of the live show, which was really fun, hearing what everyone else thought of it. But once they started properly going into it, I turned off because I hadn't quite finished it. I think I'd got like a fifth left to read, and I didn't want it to be ruined. But I want to go back now and rewatch that and hear all the discussions on it. Then what was the other prompt? Sky and Sea. Okay, so Everdark, which is my placeholder. I'm using Jungle Drop because it's part of the same series. Everdark by Abby Elphinstone I used as two of the prompts. So it has a neurodiverse character. Smudge has got dyslexia, and there is both sea and sky on the cover because the cover shows Smudge in a boat along with her monkey, whose name I've completely forgotten. Totally forgotten his name, which is terrible. I'm so sorry. Not her monkey, but a character who is a monkey. Is it Mr. something? Oh, it wasn't right. It was one of the first ones I listened to, so. But it has sea and sky on the cover as well, so it definitely hits that prompt. And then read a book from 2022, and I have Nura and the Immortal Palace for that one, which is a portal fantasy. And it's set in India, and then our protagonist goes to the magical Jinn kingdom within here. Okay, so it was 4 that were for the prompts, and then I have 3 that didn't cover them. So yeah, there's no sky on the cover for this one, so I couldn't or see for any of them, so they wouldn't fit into that third one, and none of them are a sci-fi, so it wasn't going to fit. But I really wanted to read Cattywampus. I've been wanting to read it for a really long time, and so I just picked it up and started reading it. This is then we have Ignatious Sancho. Oh, Cattywampus is a supernatural fantasy set in the Appalachian Mountains in the USA. And then we have Ignatious Sancho by Judy Hepburn, which is a historical fiction. So it's telling the story of Ignatious Sancho, who was a composer, writer and abolitionist in the late 1700s. So it's his life in London, and he was the first black man to vote. And then we have Nevermore, Hollowpox, the third in the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. And this is just, I should have read this last year. I should have read this years ago. But myself and my mum buddy read this together, and we finally got round to reading it this month, which I'm so delighted by that we finally got to read this. So this one does bring me up to date with the Nevermore series. So tick, completed that. And this is the one book I own that's on my Read What You Own challenge. Woohoo! Yeah, this was a great read. So let's go into the books. So first book I read was Nura and the Immortal Palace. Let me sort myself out. So Nura and the Immortal Palace, as well as hitting one of the prompts of Middlegrade March, it is also a buddy read on Nicole from Dusty Booksniffer's channel. In her Discord, she has a wheel where people in her Discord can choose a genre. You put your name on the wheel and she spins it every month. And if your name is picked, you get to pick a book in that genre that everyone else can join in as a group buddy read if they want to. And my name came up for March, and my genre is fantasy. And I thought, as it's Middlegrade March and I love middle grade, let's choose a middle grade fantasy. And rather than recommend one that I'd already read, I really didn't have space to be rereading stuff. So I was like, we need to read a book that I really want to read. It needs to not be like the second book in a series or something mental because everyone else needs to join in. And Nura and the Immortal Palace just seemed like a really good pick for that. I had no idea what it was about, but it is listed on Waterstones children's books as one of their nominations for the Waterstones Children's Prize. So I thought that sounded pretty good. I was really keen to pick this one up. I think I've been talking about it since December, and I was like, I absolutely have to read it. I've actually taken it back to the library because I couldn't renew it again. So I had to physically take it into the library and get it like checked out and then checked back in again. Thankfully, no one else had requested it. I'd had it for such a long time. I love the cover. So we've got this wonderful kind of like, I now know that this is like, because they're mining. So we've got this mine with all like the glitter stones around the mine that they're mining for. And then under the dust jacket, we have this purple and pink sky onto this kind of red sea. And we've got all these boats with djinn characters in. And then we've got this palace here. And we've got this picture of Nura standing and looking at it. So Nura has a family. She lives with her mum, who works in sort of like one of the seamstresses that are paid next to nothing and have to constantly work in horrible conditions. And then she has younger brothers and sisters. So Nura is trying to support the family so her mum doesn't have to work as much by going down the mines. Now this book has a huge theme of child exploitation and the importance of an education. And the exploitation is explored as well as in the in our world. It's also explored in the portal world as well, at how at the different hierarchy between the djinn in here and how they are using that sort of within this Immortal Palace. And there is a big sort of like exploration of poverty and opulence and what you would do with money when you have it, and just sort of the joy of being able to have sweets or to wear fine clothing and all sorts of different things. And so that's explored. So there's a lot of thematic things in here. What I also really enjoyed was Vadania was part of this read along, and she is an astronomical physicist. I've probably got that title completely wrong, Vadania, but she does something to do with like physics and astronomy. And she mentioned that within this fantasy there is time, space and matter are like three different what do they call them, like wings of the Immortal Palace. And she said, because I was just like, okay, sciencey stuff, I'll just kind of glaze through it and be like, yep, I'm sure that checks out. and just kind of rolling with the story here. I was like, yeah, great, wonderful, carry on. Whereas Vadania is like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. This all makes total sense. I'm like, brilliant, good to know. So if you are someone that likes things to make sense, on Vadania's authority, the sciencey part makes sense. So yay. I did enjoy our protagonist, Nura, and her friend Facial. I was like, please be on the back. I really enjoyed their sort of relationship, how she's reckless and he is cautious, and how that kind of plays into each other. And I really enjoyed how this follows this character arc. So there are traits that you're like, these are really good traits, but you also need to have a certain amount of balance between them as well. And Nura has that kind of explorative arc within herself and that kind of self-discovery. And I really enjoy reading about those types of things. I also enjoy how things kind of reflect in the real world as well, that we do need to be aware of child exploitation, that the actual stuff that they are mining in here, mica, is like glitter that's used as a sheen in many things like makeup products, and that it is produced by children in mines, because they haven't any choice other than to work to try and help out their families. And they are foregoing their education because of that. So I thought those scenes were really, really well done in here. I enjoyed the description of all the fun opulence and the kind of the contrast with the poverty within that. It was really fun. So I'm really keen to see what else this author comes out with, because I did enjoy the story and I enjoyed the writing, and yeah, it was it definitely made you think a lot as well, about a lot of things. Also made you hungry, like the way they talk about food in here. It's like, I wanna try that. And again, Vadania actually did. She went and she found this dessert and she sent us a picture of it. It's like, look, I'm having the dessert. So that was really cool. So yeah, it definitely shone an insight into all of that, and I enjoyed how we explored the culture in here of the djinn, and that it's kind of, I suppose the Western equivalent is sort of like there's the old tradition of hanging a horseshoe over your door for luck, and it is also like the iron will keep away fae, so you won't have any sort of like mischievous fae coming and disrupting your life. And you stay on the path in the woods, so you don't go into like circles, because they're fairy circles of stone, those type of things. So those sort of like superstitions are embedded in this kind of mythology, and so I like that they had the similar ones here. Like, beware of djinn, don't trust them, beware of your or there's like queensa, it's basically your like djinn twin. Like, you have to be really careful of your djinn twin as well. So I enjoyed experiencing all of that through this book. Okay, Everdark. So this Everdark is my second Abby Elphinstone book, and it was just as wonderful as Rumblestar. So we didn't get the portal aspect of that one. So Everdark is the prequel to Rumblestar. So it takes place in the Unmapped Chronicles kingdom. We are in Crackledorn. So that's kind of the sort of like the water islands. And so here we hear about Morg the Harpy and how she rose instead of the Phoenix one time and wanted to take all the power. And it is up to Smudge and her monkey companion to save the day. So Smudge has never been very good at either of the two career options that they're being trained for in school. She's not very good with the boats. She's not very good with finding the... what do they collect in Crackledorn? Is it the sunshine? The sun rays? They've got a special name for it, but it's something to do with sunshine. So she's not very good at collecting those to then send off to the faraway. So she doesn't quite fit in, but she learns what her skills are and how she can make something of herself. And she has a hero, and he was an explorer, and that's what she really wants to do. She really wants to explore beyond where they are, and she gets the opportunity in this. And we have a wonderful boat. We have it's not fully sentient, it's not like the balloon from Rumblestar, but it will kind of change and adapt depending on its magic and depending on like who's sort of steering it. And so there's lots of kind of surprises and things in there. So I really enjoyed how all of that went. I enjoyed the resourcefulness of Smudge. I enjoyed the relationship between her and the monkey character that I can't name. And there's some other characters she meets that were lots of fun, and there were some very heart-melting moments in that as well. And there was a really beautiful moment in here about sort of believing in yourself. That sounds really trite and very generic, but it was kind of more than that. It was like, just don't feel downhearted that you can't fit into the mold that you are expected to, that you can't jump through the hoops that have been set out. It doesn't mean that you're not worth anything. It doesn't mean you can't do that stuff. It just means that you have a different approach to it, and you have a different way of looking at things, and you still have strengths and you still have skills, and you need to use them and go your own way. And it just felt really, really meaningful. And there's a sort of like slight autobiographical sense of that when you read about Abby Elphinstone, that she was told that she wouldn't, I think it was like she wouldn't amount to anything or something by one of her teachers, like she didn't kind of work within the school system. Yet she went on to go to university, and she did, obviously she's now a children's author writing children's books. So you definitely get this kind of sense of feeling that she understands what it's like to feel that you really struggle within sort of like an academic system. So that was really heartening, and there were some lovely relationships in there as well. And I did really enjoy listening to it as an audiobook. It was really nice to kind of just be told a story, especially when it's this sort of like really lovely kind of heartwarming magical story. And I think I definitely will be at some point getting a physical copy of the books myself, because I want to read them with my children, or maybe we'll get them out of the library. But I definitely want to kind of look at the map, because I didn't have the map, which was a shame. My library didn't have it. I looked, they don't have Everdark, so I can't see the map yet. But I have Jungle Gold Drop, so I'm ready for the next one. Okay. Video is a lot longer than I intended it to be, but hey ho, I spoke for far too long about Hobb. I'm just going to go and get another cup of tea, and then I will finish off my middle grade. Okay, 4 more to go. So Cattywampus, I had a great time with this. I was hoping for a little bit more magic, but there's definitely mayhem in here, so that worked. We follow 2 witches from 2 different witching families. Where they live, witchcraft is scary, so it's hidden. They don't want the townsfolk to know that they are still practicing. They'd like to keep all of that hidden in the past and as kind of rumour and superstition. So you have the McGills. So we have Delph and McGill here, and their family has a heirloom of a spellbook, and they use wands, and Delpha does a lot of whittling, pardon me, that she kind of learnt from the memories of her father. So she whittles her own wands, and that kind of also links into the Appalachian crafting as well, that is mentioned quite a lot in here. I had no idea what Appalachian culture was, so it was really interesting to kind of research and find out about all of that, and I love all of like the handicraft stuff that's sort of going on in here. It's really cool. So that was really nice to see. And then we have Katie Bird Hearn, and the Hearn magic is passed from daughter to daughter, and they go through 3 different it's sort of like 3 different generations. So it's, let me find the words. So the 3 generations are Squawk, Stalk and Talk. So Squawk is you can shapeshift into an animal, that was her grandmother. Stalk is you can get anything to grow, and you have like this growing plant power ability, that's her mum. And Katie Bird, waiting for her magic to come in, is Talk, and she can talk to the spirits of the forest. is what she's hoping for. But her magic hasn't come in, but what she does have is these green glowing hands. So one of the reasons that Katie Bird is worried about is that she is intersex. So she has XY chromosomes, and she is worried that because she doesn't have the XX chromosome, that she might not be seen as female enough for her magic. So she's kind of got this internalized worry inside. But there is some sort of magic, but she's worried that she's broken. So Katie Bird sort of grows in confidence throughout all of this. So she's like struggling with that, and the perceptions that other people have of her. Generally, like, she's got this warm, loving family. They do very well. She's got some lovely relationships with like friends, and she's well liked. But obviously the magic is a big worry for her, and she wants to be able to sort it all out herself. And then with Delpha, what she has is her mum is basically sworn off magic, so she won't teach her anything and she won't show her, whereas Delpha really wants to use magic. They are on very hard times at the moment. They are pretty much on the breadline, or under the breadline, trying to make ends meet. They're having to like sell off family heirlooms. So Delpha is quite bitter about that, and also about the fact that her father left. One moment they were having a wonderful time together. He was teaching her wood carving as a small child, and the next minute he was gone. And she doesn't know why. So she's got this abandonment concern as well, and just this dislike of feeling vulnerable and of feeling hurt. And she wants to use magic to try and sort out her family's problems. So, and these two are, because they're on opposing sides, they've never got on, so they're sort of enemies by the family. But in here, they're just very different characters, and Katie Bird puts her foot in it quite a lot and sets up Delpha's hackles, and they just don't get on very well. But Catastrophe throws them together, and they have to work together to try and solve all the problems before it catches up with them. So again, in this book, we've got children wanting to prove themselves and try things for themselves and not get their adults involved because they don't want to be in trouble, they don't want to worry them, they don't want to upset them. All very believable and understandable. But I also appreciate the message that actually you cannot hold on to all of this yourself. You do need to ask for help. So I think it is important for children reading this to have that message that you shouldn't try and shoulder everything inside and do it. It's okay to ask for help, and it's important that you do ask for help. And actually, it's brave to ask for help, because you know you're going to be in a whole load of trouble, but actually it's going to be so much worse if trouble just continues to happen without you getting anyone to support you through it. So I did really appreciate that message. And we do have a third character as well that kind of unwittingly comes into this. And we have a little animal companion here, Podge. So the Hearns all have animal companions, whilst the McGills have the spell book. So this book also includes a wandering shed, some zombie granny witches, and all of that chaos. So as well as having that kind of plot point, we've also got the two witches like inner struggles that they need to be working through as well, and it was a lot of fun. So we then have the final fantasy book on here is Hollowpox. And it was just another wonderful addition to the Nevermore series. There is kind of a, just like I was talking about in Hobb, there is a definite prejudice against a group of people in here, and that I think that will also kind of reflect on our society as well. Pardon me. So there is sort of fear mongering amongst the press around some of the characters, things getting out of hand, sort of further hatred causing further problems. And I thought it was really well played out in this magical world, but you can definitely liken it to several things in our world. Again, you take any person or community of people that are seen as different, and then you get fear mongering, you get misinformation about that group of people, and people react in a, there's a beautiful way that Jupiter put it in here, numpties. Very child appropriate. yeah, you just have people being numpties, and they just can't be cured of their numpty-headedness. And it works. We live in a world of numpties where they get their information from paper sensationalized stories and believe that everyone who is like that is the same. So alas for numpties across the world. There was a lot in here that made you think of the COVID crisis, but also I think my mum actually picked this up when we were talking about it. She said it reminded her a lot of the AIDS crisis, when everyone was terrified of gay people thinking they'd catch AIDS from them, and just the kind of horrificness that was that no one had any information in the mainstream media. There was a lot of fear mongering. There was a lot of I suppose, like, for want of a better word, like witch hunts for the gay community, and so it kind of, it felt similar to that kind of thing in there. So I like it in fantasy books when you have a reflection on what it felt like to be almost criminalized through no fault of your own, reflecting in the real world. So in the Hollowpox, we have the Wunimals, who are a part of the Wondrous Society, and you have Wunimal miners that have some characteristics of an animal, and you have Wunimal mages whose physical appearance is that of an animal, but they are of human intelligence and will talk to you and can function and do other things. They just have an appearance of an animal, but there is this belief in here that they are lesser than their human counterparts and should be seen as sort of second-class citizens, as a danger to society. And all of this kind of comes about when they are all infected by this Hollowpox that kind of takes away their sentience and intelligence, and leaves them just kind of on their animal instincts. So there's a lot that kind of goes on in this. You have that. You also have Morrigan continuing her journey. We get to find out a lot more about Wondersmiths and Wondersmiths of the past and Morrigan's capabilities. Morrigan again has another kind of, so she's just almost been accepted by her own group, but now she then has to go and face further prejudice when other people, when kind of like out in the, what's the word? There's a word, when like around one sock. So other people who kind of know aren't always as friendly to her. And it kind of gets worse in here. So there's a lot going on for Morrigan. Love Morrigan. Jupiter continues to be his absolutely wonderful self. Her friends are wonderful. We get some lovely Hawthorne and Cadence moments, and Lamb as well, and the unit working really well together. And I now know, so I have the hardback, and underneath the dust jacket we have this amazing printed on cover. How fantastic is this? It is full of buildings with ladders and books all over the place and street lamps and sort of golden wonder everywhere. And I was like, I've no idea what this place is, but I love it. It is the library in Nevermore. It's the it's the library. And of course I love it even more, and it's purple. So that was really exciting when we finally got to this place. And then I'm like, that's what this is. And here, look, we've got some green eyes. It's very spooky. Oh, it's just the one. Oh no, here we go. We've got some more green eyes here. So slightly freakiness going on there. But yeah. Hollowpox maintained the same standard as Nevermore and Wondersmith before it, and I am so excited to be up to date and so super hyped for October when Silverborn comes out. Come on, Silverborn. I really hope to go to some sort of, like, if there's a bookshop doing some sort of like release event, I'd love to go to that. I want to read Nevermore, Wondersmith and Hollowpox in September before the release of Silverborn. I'm really excited. If you're interested in doing like a read along leading up to Silverborn, let me know. Would love to kind of like do a big sort of group read. That would be really fun. Reading this with my mum was so delightful. We read 5 chapters at a time, then rang each other and chatted about everything. And then I think it was the last like 13 or so chapters. I was like, Mum, I just need to read to the end. I can't stop. I'm just gonna have to read to the end. And both of us, I think before that, like the final 5 chapters we read before that point, we were like, but have you read it? Have you read it now? Because we need to chat, because I need to keep reading. It was so good. It was so good. But it was really great to read with her and to be able to discuss things in depth. And all of our mum has loads of theories. I think I'm just too busy, like just trying to go along with the story and just read. I just don't even have time to like try and theorize or think about things. Whereas it's almost like she's studying it and she's coming up with all these ideas and theories. And she was quite right about a few of them. So whoop whoop. But it was brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, my final 2 books. I read My Story, Ignatious Sancho by Judy Hepburn. So this is a children's fictional account of the story of Ignatius Sancho. It felt beautifully aimed for children. We start off with the child voice of Ignatius as a child, and then we leave it with he's voted, he's got his grocery shop, he's kind of like surrounded by lots of other kind of like artists and activists, and they're all kind of encouraging each other to do different things. And we have him having a sort of lovely moment with his son, talking about writing. And then we finish off with one of his letters that he wrote. And so I thought that was a really nice way to end this like little historical fiction account. So this has definitely whetted my appetite to read more about Ignatius Sancho, and I'm really, really excited to then read the second book in the Lizzie and Bell series, which is Portraits and Poisons, that came out at the end of March, I believe, where one of the characters in that, Lizzie, is I think the 3rd daughter of Ignatius Sancho. So that is a lot of fun. And I have seen, I can't remember the name, I think it's the Letters and Writings of Ignatius Sancho. I've seen that book around, and I'm keen to pick that up at some point to be able to study more what he wrote and kind of learn more about him as a historical figure. Finally, we have a Rover story. So this is my first book by Jasmine Varga, who is most well known for Other Words for Home, that I do really, really want to read and have not yet read. But a Rover story was such a fabulous story about this Mars rover that is being created and then is sent to Mars to pick up some stuff, so to help the humans learn more about Mars. I really love the art on here by Matt Rockefeller. So we have each of the parts of the book. So preparing, so this is all about the Mars rover and the tests. And so we get this double page illustration here up until we get to the next one, which is part 2, which is the launch. So again, we get another double page spread. So I really enjoyed that. And it's within part 1, it's not broken up into chapters, it's just broken up into little things. So we've got like first day, and then we've got Rania, backup, and so it's just lots of little the shake and bake, lots of little headings for the chapters. So it's all in little segments, so it was very easy to kind of like read and put down, and I think great for reading with children because you can easily read a bit and be able to put it down. So we have the robot that is starting to understand what it means to be human from what he calls the hazmats, which are humans in hazmat suits working on him because they don't want to have anything unsterile going to Mars. So there's a lot of exploration of that. So 2 of the people are Xander, who talks to Rover, talks to Res, short for resilient, like a real person. Then we have Rania, who's much more logical about everything and does amazing coding, but doesn't really give Res any human emotions sort of until towards the end, when Res is going to be sent off to be launched. We also have letters written from Rania's daughter Sophie to Res, and just talking about how difficult it is that mum's always working, but the importance of that, and Rez hears Rania talking on the phone to her daughter, and we have a lovely sort of like understanding of the family setup from that. And it was really nice to see that kind of balance between work and family. And also I love Rez. I love AI. I love AI with human emotions. They're wonderful. So we see lots of different I love that the technology is described to talk to each other, and the phones are kind of visualized as really chatty. The smart pads are really like focused on work. And then Rez gets their own drone who is really excited. So I love all of the different kind of characters given to the different electronical devices, like what that have like a brain that the Rez can communicate with. And then all of the exploration of Mars was so much fun, and how Rez worked as a team with other people. And then the whole kind of idea of whether or not Rez can return to Earth. Like, is it worthwhile them arranging for Rez to come back to Earth, and how that happens? So it is a very kind of like, it's very emotional. I'd say it's like a story of humanity and friendship, and like being able to do your best and working as a team, and it just all of those lovely kind of like warm, fuzzy, joyful things in here. There were some things that I did kind of want from it a little bit more at the end. So I'll do that. I'm going to say spoilers now and I'll talk about those. But if you are looking for a sci-fi to read that is quite warm-hearted, I really recommend this. If you like AI, I think you'll enjoy this. If you like space exploration, and I'm really looking forward to reading this with my boys. I think it's going to be a really fun read. Spoilers now, so if you don't want to be spoiled, off you go. Bye 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 bye. So I really was hoping that Rez would find some way of communicating with the humans, just because I really wanted Rez to be able to talk to them. And especially talk to, even if Rez just was able to talk to Sophie, like on some level, I just really wanted him to talk to one of the humans, and just have that kind of interaction happening. But that didn't happen, and that wasn't what the focus of the book was. So that's okay. But I'm so gutted that Fly did not make it. That really hurts. Like, poor Fly. But we don't know what's happened. Like, we don't know if Fly just stopped working and is just like a machinery carcass on Mars, or if Rover was recovered but they didn't think it worthwhile to bring the drone, so poor Fly is just left abandoned there, just chatting away to Guardian. And I think I probably hope it's the latter, because at least Fly and Guardian can be friends, but Fly will miss Rover, and Fly has just been abandoned, and it just makes me feel sad. But maybe another Rover will go to Mars. Rover, I keep calling Rez Rover. It's Rez. It's confusing because it's got a Rover story. So maybe another Mars rover will go, and Fly can help them along with Guardian. Maybe that's what will happen, and that would be a bit nicer. I don't know, but I'm really sad about Fly not getting to stay with Rez, because they're really good friends. But very pleased that Rania's mum did make it through. I really thought that she died. I thought that was it, that she was not with us anymore. But it was so lovely to see her come and visit Rez, and I really hope that Sophie and Rania bring the letters that Sophie wrote to Rez to read to Rez. I really hope that happens, because I think that would be really sweet. But overall, yes, I did really enjoy a Rover story. I thought it was beautifully well done. I love Jasmine Varga's writing. It was just so beautiful. It's really, can't explain it completely, but it was a very heartwarming story. It was very nice, very, very nice. Okay, we're gonna end there. This is a ridiculously long video. I'm so sorry it took so long, but hopefully you have used your timestamps and listened to the stuff you were interested in and skipped the waffle that you weren't. Thank you so much for watching. Please get chatty in the comments about anything I've discussed. You know I love a chat, and I will be talking about the rest of what I read in March at some point soon. Happy reading, everyone.